Hi, my name is Vishwas Lele, and I work for Applied Information Sciences. I'm also the regional director for the Washington, D.C. area. In this short session, I'm going to talk about AJAX style of building web applications and how ASP.NET 2.0 supports building these kinds of applications. So what I plan to do is just give you an overview of AJAX, and then I'm going to jump into code, and then we're going to start talking about ASP.NET 2.0 capabilities. And we will finish off this session by looking at a specific control, a simple control that I developed based on the AJAX. Okay? So for those uninitiated, AJAX is not about code hygiene. AJAX is a term that stands for asynchronous JavaScript in XML. It is a new style of building web applications which has been in vogue lately, not because some new groundbreaking technologies have emerged in the last few months, but because of some glamorous, glitzy applications that have appeared in the last few months. If you've been using Microsoft applications such as Outlook Web Access or SharePoint, you've been used to this style of applications. It's just that it's a new name. Also, there's no denying that the new set of applications such as Google Maps or A9 from Amazon have brought the focus on AJAX style of building web applications. Let me just point out very quickly the difference between AJAX style of building applications and traditional web application. So in a traditional web application, you have the browser making a request to the web server. Web server in turn returns some UI element, HTML combined with some CSS back to the browser, and the browser renders it. In the AJAX style of building applications, between your UI, which is the browser rendering that information, this JavaScript magic, which is sitting right here, between your web server and your UI. And what is typically happening is, instead of reloading the entire page again, what you do is, the web server is returning you small segments of XML data, and this XML data is then using DHTML or some other mechanism rendered onto the browser instance. Okay, that's the big difference. The other big difference is that AJAX style is asynchronous, which means if you've clicked an action on your browser, you don't have to wait till the web server to process it completely for taking the next action. In AJAX style, you can click on an action, an asynchronous call is initiated, and while the asynchronous call is being completed, you can continue to do other operations with your browser. Now, of course, the focus of my talk here is ASP.NET 2.0 and how 2.0 enables you to write these kinds of applications. So let me very briefly describe underneath the covers how ASP.NET 2.0 makes this possible. So assume that this is a page right here. From the browser instance, instead of making an HTTP post call, what you do is you can initiate a call back to a server-side control or a server-side page, which is being shown right here. And what you do is you tell the ASP.NET runtime what control is it that you're trying to talk to, what is the data that you're trying to send to this control, and what callback should be initiated once the server operation is complete. So you have three pieces of information. Once you have this information, you send it out to ASP.NET. ASP.NET looks at this information and says, oh, this is a callback, routes it to the right control, which is implementing this interface called iCallback event handler. And once this method is implemented or run on the server side, control is then passed back onto your browser, which can then take some action, render this information onto the UI. So this is what is happening underneath the covers in ASP.NET 2.0. Let's take a quick look at the code and look at the syntax of how all this is possible. So let me jump over to Visual Studio.NET. And what I have for you here is a very simple control called the progress bar control. Now, you've been to a number of websites where the progress is indicated by either an animated GIF or some other mechanism, but you can't truly tell how much of the operation is indeed complete. So what I've done here is I've used the AJAX model to build this control called the progress bar control. And let me begin this demo by showing you how this control looks, and then we'll drill down into the code. So let me run this application. This is a simple application with one control on it. And if I click on the progress bar control, this is a very simple progress bar control. As you can see, no HTTP posts are happening. If you watch the address bar here, no postbacks are happening to the server. And this control is able to tell me the state of my operation, how much of it is complete. So this is a very simple control. Let's look at how I went about implementing this control using the ASP.NET capability. So let me jump into the code. I chose to implement, to keep this demo simple, I chose to implement this control as an ASCX control rather than a server control. You could choose either of them. First and foremost, my ASCX control needs to implement an interface that we just talked about, which is the iCallback event handler. So I need to implement this interface. And as part of implementing this interface, I need to implement a method called the raise callback event method. So this is the method that I need to implement. So when the client is ready to make a callback, ASP.NET runtime is going to route it to this method. Okay. Now, ASP.NET also makes it easy for me to initiate the client callbacks. And to look at that code here, let's drill down into this function called the register script block, which is registering my script. What is interesting here is I'm calling a function get client-side script. Inside the client-side script is perhaps the most interesting part of this code right here. I'm calling a function which is new in ASP.NET 2.0, which is the get callback event reference. Okay, this is the key method that you want to look for. What this method does is you're telling ASP.NET through a handler that I'm trying to call this control, in this case this control. I'm trying to call it in an asynchronous manner, and please notify this function after this callback is complete. So I'm passing all these pieces of information, and what this method returns to me is a reference to a client-side method that I need to call. Okay? The beauty of this method is it's hiding all kinds of details from me. It figures out what kind of browser am I in. Am I in IE or am I in Netscape? And figures out the right mechanism to make the call back to the server. So I don't have to worry about it. So once I make this call, I get the reference to my method. Then I go into my JavaScript code. Let's take a quick look at the JavaScript code. Here's the JavaScript code. As you can see, I have some JavaScript code that goes down to the client. The only thing I'm replacing before I send it down to the client is the client-side reference that I just obtained in the previous step. I replace that, and as you can see, what is happening in the client-side function is I'm setting a timeout for 200 milliseconds. So this function gets called every 200 milliseconds. And every time I make a call back to the server tells me how much percentage of my operation is complete. And based on what my server returned to me, in my client-side function, I'm going to use DHTML to change the width of my HTML table. So the progress bar control that you saw previously is nothing but an HTML table. And I get the status back from the server, and I use DHTML to show you the status of my operation. So if I quickly run this function, I can run this, and I can see the progress bar. Folks, that's all the time I have. I hope you can take this information and build more AJAX style applications with ASP.NET 2.0. Thank you so much.